on the brink of death, befriending danger in a battle to control the unknown. And they learn through experience that fear may just be their worst enemy. They are nameless, heroic strangers, hailed to the rescue when duty calls. Yet they are known simply as firefighters.
When I was a little boy, I used to like firefighters and watch them go down the street and hanging on the back of the truck, and I used to say, hey, that's great. Shiny chrome trucks and red flashers and red lights and big tools. First time I was on the truck, I found it exciting. First time I was in a fire, I wanted to get out.
16,000 times each year, Montreal's firefighters are summoned to the rescue with equal urgency. But before the city's firefighters are called to action, the message is phoned in and arrives here at the dispatch center. This is the link between panic and order. It's the fire department's central headquarters, the crucial thread of communication where timing is everything. 4 minutes and 16 seconds. That's the fire department's total average response time to a given call. And as the battle against fire enters the computer age, soon technology will see systems installed in stations and on board fire trucks. Until then, this main switchboard is the go-between. And with the city's 1,800 firefighters, it's a round-the-clock pursuit.
Fire is a tool if we use it properly, and fire is our enemy if we abuse it.
Destructive?
Right. Fire is energy. We use it for good or we can use it for bad. We're there to make sure it's used for good only.
It's an unassuming facade, one of 35 fire stations in the Montreal area. Inside, equipment stands at attention, prepared and preserved, ready for the bell that will bring them to life.
We never know what's awaiting us. We never know what to expect, so it's a challenge. We're pitting ourselves against the elements.
See you next week.
It's 5 o'clock, and 14 men in blue have just begun the night shift. Routine duty calls for equipment check, a tedious group procedure which launches each shift every day of the week. It's a ritual mentally and mechanically familiar to these men, and yet each time is as meticulous as the first day on the job. One forgotten task, one missed detail, or malfunctioning tool would make a regrettable difference to firefighters facing flames with less than what they needed to survive.
Reality is very responsible. You realize that people depend on you. When their lives are in danger, when they don't know what to do anymore, that's when they call us. They only call us when they have trouble. They never call us for coffee or come over for tea. It's only when they're in trouble.
It's supper time at the fire station, and the only call they've heard so far tonight is the dinner bell. From cadet to seasoned firefighter, for the next 12 hours, they're a fraternity. Is it like family dinner?
It's the same thing. It is the same thing, except that it's not my mom that's preparing it. It has to be us.
We can identify with each other, whether it be an individual experience or a group experience. We're there for each other. We support each other.
À ce moment-là, tout ce qu'on va faire, on va respirer pour elle. On va donner une insufflation à toutes les 5 secondes.
The collective background of this unit adds up to many years of professional experience. Yet all firefighters train daily. From video analysis to hands-on practice, the business of life-saving is an ongoing education. This is an outlet for energy. Even those who choose to rest do so in uniform. Fire gives no warning.
Gazelle 27 pour les chats-là.
We are firefighters. We put out fires, we fight fire, and we, as the little boys used to imagine, we save and rescue people.
Because when you get to a fire, you don't even know if the building will collapse or what will happen there. When you get the call from the fire station, you don't know where you're going, and you don't know if you'll come back.
When you're fighting the fire, you're fighting it as a team. You're always two, at least two, to fight a fire. You're always at least two to go save somebody. But then when you're all by yourself in the dark, this is a time when everything goes back in your head just like a film.
The 39-year-old Ron Barron has been fighting fire for 14 years. Today, he's acting lieutenant. So, Ron, I guess from up here you can see your entire community that you serve.
Yeah, basically we serve everything that we see here in the background. The Green Dome is our firehouse, the fire station. We protect hospitals, we protect the university, apartment buildings, metro, churches, schools, convents, and thousands of homes and apartments.
How did you feel after you heard that first bell, for real, after all those months of training?
It took all day for that alarm to sound, that first bell to sound, and I remember sitting there and being on pins and needles and sort of anxious, gung-ho, as they say, waiting to go down the pole and waiting to get on the back of the truck, waiting to prove myself because I had been trained. First call was a disappointment. It was just a little smell of smoke from somebody's fireplace. When I got my first fire, I was on the roof of a 3-story building. I had flames coming out on the left, flames coming out on the right, and flames coming out in the front. And I was on a roof, surrounded by flames, walls of flames. And I was terrified. And I turned to the officer next to me and I said, "Isn't this dangerous?" And
you should have thought of that before.
The officer looked at me as if to say, "Look, little kid, don't worry." And he explained to me very nicely, he said, "When the snow starts to melt on the roof, then we get off." And he says, "In the summertime, when the tar starts to melt, then we get off."
Do you ever stop to think that your entire life and career is spent saving other people, mostly strangers who you never hear from again?
I think what our reward is the feeling inside ourselves, knowing that we did good. We do a job, and within 5 minutes, an hour, we see the results. We know that we did a good job. We know that we helped. We see it instantly.
What do you fear?
My greatest fear, I think, is to die in a fire. To die in a smoke-filled building, choking on the smoke. That would be my hell.
When the Unitarian Church of the Messiah called more than 100 men to its 5-alarm fire, 2 fighters were killed. Ron thought he would be as well.
When I got to the vestibule, I couldn't see nothing. It was smoke, it was dust. I thought the face of the building was coming down, and I was scared. I didn't want to be trapped underneath it. So I ran, and I was running all the way out. And
you didn't know where the front would be, you just kept going.
I knew that the doors were there. I knew I was in the vestibule, and I knew that the building was coming down around me. And I forgot the steps. I missed them. I came out, and I hit the sidewalk, or I hit the pavement, tried to stand up, couldn't. I rolled, I crawled, I rolled, till I was halfway across Sherbrooke Street. I believe in fate, and I believe in destiny tremendously now. I know that the past is the past, the present is certain, and it's now, and the future is whatever is waiting. And I can't do anything about that. It makes you change your beliefs a lot. That's the church.
And this is the chief, André Sabourin, a 52-year-old veteran with 27 years behind him, is a district chief. But take away his badge and uniform, and he's husband to Lisette, father to 2 grown children. And hanging humbly on his living room wall is a reminder, testimony that their lives are far from ordinary.
I've seen friends, firefighters that I've lost, especially one of the 2 at the church there on Sherbrooke Street. I used to be his lieutenant at one point. And I recall when I was working at the station with him, and I recall I just see him being serious and talking to the guys, and he had the potential to be a lieutenant, and yeah, especially this one because I knew him pretty well. And all of a sudden, just like that, zoom, he's gone.
Did you ever get used to losing a firefighter?
No, it's getting harder all the time. I don't think that is ever easy for somebody or anybody losing somebody close to you is an experience that you don't like to encounter often.
You never get used to it?
You never get used to that, no.
Would you consider yourself to be a brave man?
No, no. I consider myself as a just plain ordinary human being, but when the time comes to be brave, we, the firefighters, are there. All of us, we're dedicated.
I won't listen to radio. I won't listen to news. And I won't run at a place of fire. Where there's a fire, I won't go there. Because...
you don't want to know?
I don't want to know. I'm sure it's bit, I mean, I think we have to live a normal life.
23-year-old Perry Zuppel of Station 27 has been firefighting for 2 years.
I am worried because I don't think when you care about someone, you can't put it out of your mind completely. But I try to, because if I only think about that, I'm going to be miserable.
But a fire station is really special, what we feel together, the feeling we have between us. It's like a family, like brothers together.
And when you lose one?
It's tough, very tough, it's painful. I lost 2 guys 1 year ago. It's very hard, and sometimes it takes me. I talk with my wife, and it's very hard. And many times I don't. First time when a few weeks after they died in the fire, I didn't want to hear the bell. I was scared to go in the fire.
If I were a cadet just coming out of training, if I were Perry, for instance, and I came to you and I said, "Chief, I'm scared," what kind of advice would you give?
Well, if Perry was to come to me and ask me, listen, Chief, I'm scared, I would say, Perry, we're all scared.
And if fear is their worst enemy, Father Paul Morin is often their best friend. Since 1950, he's been the Montreal Fire Department's chaplain.
How do you cope with firefighters or families of victims? How do you help them cope with tragedy?
Well, this is the most acute, delicate situation that I can face. When it happens, first, when we notice them, it's always a big, great shock. Not always the same kind of shock, but it's always a big one. And after that, the desolation is normally follow. So I have to try to encourage them, to give them peace, to bring them kind of peace, and to show them great friendliness and affection in a good, friendly way to help them pass these terrible desolation.
This is the morning after a 5-alarm blaze, and a familiar sight to me. Last year, I returned home from work to find a 5-alarm fire burning in my own house. Fortunately, nobody was hurt. It's the firefighters' #1 priority to save lives first. And last year in Montreal, they rescued 111 people.
The place was very hot with the steam and smoke. And I could see the flames downstairs. And the door was stuck. I tried to open it, but I was not able to open it. Within 1 or 2 minutes, the fire department was there. And they put the ladder on my balcony. One person came on the balcony, and he was helping us, to put my mother and sister on the ladder. I was being rescued by fire department. If they are not here, we were not able to, get out of this place or live anymore like that.
When I die, I know I'm going to heaven, because on earth I've been to hell.
For most of this century, think of the name Irvin and you think of hockey. Dick Irvin Sr., a fine player and great coach. Dick Jr., the voice of the Montreal Canadiens and broadcaster on Hockey Night in Canada. 2 lifetimes in hockey. Dick writes about those two lives in his new book. For 25 years, Dick has been calling the action.
Legend has it Dick's first words were not Mummy or Daddy, but face-off. The Regina public school system instructed Dick in the 3 R's. His father taught him the game. This might have been a childhood fantasy.
Blake takes it down. Whoa, they're into the corner there. It's a big ruckus. Cross in front of the net, takes it way up to Meeker. Meeker's alone, he shoots, he scores!
Over the line, it tied the game. It just made it, rolling over the red line.
50-odd years later, it is Dick Irvin, author.
When the long days of summer arrive, Dick, like most hockey people, heads for the golf course. He plays the game better than most of today's hockey stars. He joined the Beaconsfield Club as a junior in 1953. Only a few years ago, he set a course record here, shooting a 30 on the front 9. Just another great moment in sports.
This is a par 4, and I very seldom am on in 2 down, as we call it, on in regulation figures.
Oh, beautiful shot.
Well, it's not bad.
Well, the seniors are always dangerous around the green, right?
That's what I am now.
Dick, did you ever aspire to play the game of hockey professionally?
I suppose when I was scratching around in my rink in the backyard in Regina and recreating a Foster Hewitt broadcast from the night before, why, I suppose I thought I was going to be a hockey player. But when I got to within the age of reason, Don, I realized that hockey ability is not hereditary, and I am the perfect example of that. So once my college days were over, once the McGill days were over, I never played again, except a few late-night games with the Channel 12 Chickens.
An outstanding player early in this century, Dick Irvin Sr. coached for 26 years in the NHL. As Dad was winning games, Dick said goodbye to old McGill.
I used to say when the Canadians would be in a slump and Dad was looking for some comic relief, he'd come and watch me play for McGill. But there's no doubt about it that, in fact, I ran into fellows many years later who told me that they used to boo me at Laval when we'd go up and play in Quebec City, simply because I was Dick Irvin's son playing for McGill.
Did your father enjoy media types, and how would he regard the massive media scrums of television today?
I think in the television age, he would have been magnificent. He would have been a great guy to do the Howie Meeker bit between periods and so on. He was very, very with it, and he was around the last couple of years of his coaching career coincided with the start of Hockey Night in Canada, and I can remember him being a guest on between periods.
You suggesting there was a bit of a ham in him then?
Very much so. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. He was this famous scrapbook that sort of forms the basis of the book. It's just Irvin, 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 Irvin in the headlines. Whereas in his days in Toronto, the headlines are all Smythe. But when he came to Montreal, he took that role and he loved it. Oh yeah, he loved it.
My first 2 years with Canadian was with Dick's father.
Was he tough?
Yes, but honest. He knew the capacity or the what a player could provide as his ability, and if the players work and produce for him, he was fair. And if somebody would attack one of his players and he decided that it was unjustified, he would step right in and support us.
In 1961, Dick left Shell Oil and joined cFCF Television as a sportscaster. He was paid $75 a week. Someone must have said, "We'll make you a star." Dick even did a bowling show, and he developed a sports quiz program, becoming the Bob Barker of jocks.
And now, here is the host of Know Your Sports, Dick Irvin.
Thank you very much, Nick Hollenrake, and welcome to the game we've been talking about for the past 39 weeks.
It may compete with the golf course as Dick's home away from home. This is Dick's broadcasting perch in the Montreal Forum. He will tell you it is the best seat in the house. Well, he should know. He has described close to 1,000 games from this lofty perch. All that hockey, and he doesn't have to pay to get in. More than one hockey fan has accused Dick Irvin of being a homer. Are you now, Dick, prepared to admit in front of millions of Canadians that you do indeed root secretly for the Montreal Canadiens?
Of course not. Never, never. We're unbiased.
But you have
the big
roots
TV
in this
show.
city, and it's been an exciting team.
Every sportscaster worthy of the name that has been involved with a team has been accused of that over the years, baseball, hockey especially. But it comes with the territory. And it bothers you a little bit, especially when you feel in your heart you're really trying to play it down the middle, and then people try to tell. I understand there was a guy got on the radio in Winnipeg last spring during the Stanley Cup playoffs and roasted me and Don Cherry and others for being so homerish. I for the Canadians, Cherry for the Bruins, and so on. But like I say, you have to get used to it.
And along the way, there have been honors and awards for his volunteer work, his fame captured by cartoonists.
How would you rate Dick's hockey knowledge over the years?
Among the very best. Really, among the very, he's been very attentive over the years, learned an awful lot from guys like me. He's listened, he's prepared. That's what you admire most about Dick. He prepares and he listens. So I'd have to say he's certainly among the very best. Like his father, I would say that he knows the players very well. He's not afraid to spend the time, and that's why he's so respected not only by members of our organization, but all around the league.
If you compare him to, I'd say, maybe announcers from other teams, he's not quite as biased as all the other people. He's fair in judging people on and off the ice, and he tries to tell the game like it is, not like people want to hear it sometimes.
Dick contributes to Pulse News and is the host of the highly rated Dick Irvin's Hockey Magazine, syndicated across Canada. He loves the music of the big bands, and thousands listen to him on CFQR-FM every Saturday night.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Big Band Swing. I'm Dick Irvin, your host for the next 115 minutes here on 92.5 CFQR.
When the hockey season begins, does the Irvin family life change dramatically?
Oh, definitely. Dramatic might be a little strong word to use, but certainly there's a definite change between summer and winter. But we've grown up with it, so we don't notice it as an actual change. It's just been part of our lifestyle since the children were born.
Over supper in the Irvin home, would hockey be the #1 topic?
No, sometimes we talk golf.
Occasionally golf.
No, there are usually in our lifestyle, particularly in the winter, there's a list of things that you have to catch up with. There are notes left on the bulletin board, on the kitchen counter, anywhere. And usually when we get together, there's quite a few things we've got to catch up with. Family situations and things like that.
There were 2 proud moments in the Irvin family this year: Dick's election to the media section of the Hockey Hall of Fame and the publication of his memoir.
Would you pay $24.95 for his book?
Yes, indeed. I'd fork over the $24.95. Mrs. Irvin needs the money for shopping because Dick never gives her any. So yes, I certainly would.
Would you pay $24.95 for his book?
If you'll pay $24.95 for mine.
Is the game itself more important than a Wayne Gretzky going to Los Angeles? The game itself more important than all that?
There have been years when things have happened and those of us in the media run around frothing at the mouth about this and that, but the game survives.
It does, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. And, heck, they played. The MAA won the Stanley Cup in 1893. That's a long time ago. And, you know, as I say, 100 years from now, there will be another team winning the Stanley Cup. And the Gretzkys of life will have come and gone and done their thing, and we're all the better for it, those of us who like to watch this game, and just for enjoyment, if nothing else. But the game is marvelous, and it has to be to have survived all of these years.
Our 3-star selection after this break.
It's basically 80 people in a large blue and yellow tent. It's better known to us, though, as that entertainment phenomenon, the Cirque du Soleil, Quebec's goodwill ambassadors to the world.
Yeah, it was fantastic, it really was. Very uplifting. Makes you feel in magic again.
It's Alice in Wonderland. You believe in the world again.
Oh, it transforms us all into kids again, doesn't it? It was fabulous. I wish there was a circus every month of the year.
To run away and join the circus. It's the circus that tempts us when we think our lives are getting too dull. At the Cirque du Soleil, you can give in to that temptation. Come and join the circus.
We're greeted by ordinary people in everyday clothes who lead us to the performer that's in us all. Welcome to the fantasy that's le Cirque du Soleil.
it's very hard to explain what Cirque du Soleil is. You could talk with passion about it, but to explain the detail of it, it's very hard. You know, you could give a brief idea. So when I met somebody, I always try to get him under the big top. And after that, it's much easier to talk about Cirque du Soleil.
The Los Angeles skyline is a long way from their debut in the winding streets of Quebec City. But as the troupe has grown, so has its reputation, leaving audiences spellbound right across North America.
Programme Souvenir, magazine of the Cirque du Soleil.
But even with its new international connections, it's first and foremost homegrown Quebec talent.
We've been popular here in Montreal, in Quebec City, in Vancouver, in Toronto before we went to state. A project like Cirque du Soleil can be successful outside before it has its popular population back up. And Cirque du Soleil's story is first a question of a love story between his Quebec and Canadian public. We always use a line saying we prefer giving job to 2 persons instead of feeding an elephant. And we do believe in that. But more than that, to be able to deliver an artistic product like that, you have to be able to work with people who understand we are able to play, because a lot of things with Cirque du Soleil is the acting aspect, the atmosphere, the spirit. And quite honestly, I don't think an elephant or a tiger could bring and improve the spirit of Cirque du Soleil.
It is a circus without animals. Classic circus acts reinvented with a touch of theater and acrobatics. 80 people make up the troupe, with an emphasis on youth. The youngest members are in their early teens.
When I was small, I liked the circus on TV or all the kind of circus. And when I know they have Circus School Montreal, I go.
Do you find it tiring though?
Yeah, I'm really tired. It's hard to do show every day. Just the Monday, we have a day off, but when you think it's always tomorrow, another one, tomorrow, another one.
This, to me, is more like a theater show, where the line is very definite and people know exactly what they're watching and they can follow the line all the way through. There's a human drama also, an element that could replace that, and that's a bit what we do here. You know? Even though there is some danger in some of the acts, but that's not what we gamble on.
We started off with a teacher, of course, to do this, and we had a much shorter act. We had about 3 tricks in the act when we started. In fact, it took longer to climb up onto the trapeze than it did to do the whole act up there when we started. But it was really good to be performing really quickly after we were learning, just to have that. The best practice you can ever get for something dangerous like that is to perform it. I'm really sure of it, not just keep practicing for years and years.
And if this show left you wanting more, there are other shows coming from the same people who brought you Le Cirque du Soleil.
There's a new project coming on next year, which is another artistic creation, which is called Eclipse. It's a big show under a big top that we had created specifically for that show, which is a stage show. It's more an approach of a play, and I think it's kind of another step of creation. It involved mostly all the same creator of Cirque du Soleil.
Next, a sultry sense of rhythm. When a barge carrying 3,000 tons of garbage left New York in spring of 1987, it was a cargo of trash that traveled 6,000 miles in search of dumping ground, only to wind up in its own backyard. But it was also a sign of a system gone haywire, a garbage crisis on a global scale, growing in cities with two incompatible features: excess waste and shrinking space.
You put it in your green bag in front of the door, and it's gone in a truck twice a week, and that's it. But then, what happens?
They look like giant craters in the ground. They're known as landfill sites, and Miron is one of 3 in the Montreal area, 250 feet deep and 3 million square feet in size. Each day, 1,200 trucks dump the city's garbage right here. That's 1.2 million tons of trash every year.
It's like filling up the Grand Canyon.
It may be the largest landfill site in the industrialized world, but Miron will close in 1994, preceded by Rivière des Prairies in 1991 and Meloche in 1990.
You have to look at it in a very integrated way to see who are the actors and make them play their part.
But nobody wants this waste. You don't want it, I don't want it, and we won't accept it. So why do we create it? We don't have to.
Garbage is something that is not exactly glamorous.
The consumer is ultimately where the buck stops. The consumer will pay no matter what.
And we've created these craters in the middle of our environment. They're sitting there, and they're ugly, they're not safe, they're a real hazard. What do we fill them with?
By 1994, we have to find other ways of handling, in Montreal and in the Montreal region, almost 2 million tons of garbage. We have no choice.
The conventional choice for garbage disposal has been to bury refuse in landfill sites, open dumps often tucked into residential areas. The city of Montreal disposes of 300,000 tons of trash per year at the Descarrières incinerator. Built in 1970, it too is located in a densely populated sector, burning 1,000 tons of domestic waste each day, in turn producing 85,000 tons of ash per year. Like the city's landfills, the incinerator is set to close as well, the latter in 2007.
Until now, waste was considered as something marginal. Marginal in all the senses of the term. Marginal in your house. You put it somewhere where you don't see it. It's either under the sink, or in the furthest room, or outside the room, or it's rejected as soon as you can. And you reject it from your eyes.
Jean-Pierre Reberet is part of a group of UQAM professors studying problems of waste management.
I think you can judge a society by the way it gets rid of the waste it produces. I really mean that. The way we're getting rid of the problem is not a long-term solution, or is a pollution-generating solution.
Under the slogan, "Nothing is lost, we recycle," 20 UQAM students are up to their elbows in garbage. After refrigerating collection overnight, contents are separated and analyzed in 45 categories.
People can look at their garbage in a different way. instead of saying, this is glass that I'm going to throw away, they say, this is potential glass that will be recycled. You don't have the same attitude. You're not going to hide it away. It's positive. It's not negative.
In the plan to reduce waste, recycling is of key importance. If 3 feet of paper are the equivalent to 1 tree, then paper recycling carries ecological as well as economical advantages. The recycling of glass accounts for 20% less air pollution, 80% less mining waste, 50% less water, and 32% more energy available to be used elsewhere.
There's going to be a whole new industry, not just the industry of collection, but the industry of recovery and recycling. And we're going to change the mentality and the whole culture relating to garbage over a period of time.
President of the Executive Committee of the City of Montreal, Michael Feinstadt.
What are we going to do about it? How can we reduce the amount of garbage? How can we recycle it? How can we recover the garbage? And how can we economically and from the point of view of social responsibility, get rid of this massive garbage that our cities are producing? I think that people are very sensitive about the garbage problem because everybody's part of it. Everybody has to handle the garbage. Everybody has to take it and put it in the plastic bag. They have to take it out twice a week. So there's kind of everybody participates, and everybody feels that they're part of the problem. And if they're all part of the problem, eventually we hope that everybody will be part of the solution.
In 1986, residents of LaSalle became participants in a municipal recycling program called Récupération. While half of local citizens voluntarily responded to the project's inception, today 75% have managed to weave a neighborhood experiment into the fabric of daily life.
Ecologically, environmentally, and socially acceptable for the future in managing the garbage. But in all those scenarios, recycling and recuperation is a first step which is worthwhile only for one very simple reason: you're reducing the volume.
LaSalle's majority response to routine recycling has set a positive precedent, paving the way for other municipalities to follow by example. Kirkland Mayor Sam Elkis, president of an intermunicipal board of waste management, is optimistic that Kirkland, Beaconsfield, Pointe Claire, and Bay d'Urfé will respond with comparable interest.
All this to say is that we are running out of space, and nobody seems to know much about the subject. So it's, number one, finding something, an alternative, and increasing the awareness.
Do you know that Montreal has a garbage crisis, or you're not aware of it?
I wasn't aware of that. Certainly. I guess everybody is.
Do you do anything personally to try and combat that, or?
No. No, I don't.
I know there are certain products that are for recycling, but I don't really use that many products that are for recycling. Except I can't really think. I know there are certain products like aluminum and things of that nature, but I hardly use these things.
In the consumer's marketplace, an estimated 1/3 of the weight of groceries is packaging alone.
9% of your weekly grocery bill goes towards paying packaging. And for a family of 4, that's it's about $600 a year, which you're paying for garbage. You're going to the store, you're picking up garbage called packaging, and you throw it out at the end of the year. Now, some packaging you need. Some packaging, a lot of packaging, you don't need. And this is where we've got to draw the line.
Nobody's knocking packaging. I think it's a necessity, but it's what you use to package.
What we see in a lot of packaging is packaging which is unnecessary, packaging which uses materials which cannot be disposed of, and the packaging industry is not stuck with that problem, but we are.
We live by public pressure. Public pressure is the marketplace. If public pressure is directed toward one particular ideal or one particular preference to another, we respond to that.
The industry won't easily admit that they are participating to the degradation of the biosphere, but they are.
How is packaging destroying the environment?
Packaging represents almost 1/3 of all domestic solid waste.
We don't get up in the morning to go and produce garbage. Now, I'm not sure quite what the environmental answer to that is.
I guess the answer is packaging where necessary, but not necessarily packaging. There is such a thing as responsible packaging. Packaging which, first of all, packaging which can be recycled, packaging which can be reused.
So packaged fruits like
Philip Van Leeuwen is president of EcoSense, a 10-year-old conservation group which serves to sensitize the public to waste problems and solutions.
Here's a perfect example where a consumer can make an ecological choice. You can buy the mushrooms in a plastic container with plastic wrap in the plastic container which you have to throw away, or you can buy them loose and store them in a paper bag. Here's a perfect example of wasteful packaging. Here we have a bottle which is non-refillable, and the plastic just gets thrown away into the landfills. Here you have one which is returnable, made of glass, refillable, and this one will go through about 10 or 12 cycles before it finally gets recycled back into a new bottle. Now, if the packaging industry itself, or the industry which uses packaging, does not regulate itself and see the necessity of doing this, then it's up to government at the provincial and the federal level to put in either legislate, either to ban certain toxic kinds of packaging and products, or to tax it, so that when the consumer goes to the store, we'll have a choice.
But we're on a crash course now. We have to get all the facts, we have to pull them all together, and we have to make decisions. And we can't make decisions in 1994. It has to be operational in 1994.
I can't think that we're going to have, continue to bury materials that are going to be around for another 1,000,000 years. It just doesn't make sense.
Going 50 to 100 years in the future, the worst scenario would be that the Earth would be a nice garbage can and we'd all be on a spaceship looking for a planet with some nice green, clean, pristine environment.